Malfunction 54, the Therac 25 story. It sounds like the title of a sci-fi thriller, but it's not. This is a chilling, true story from the dawn of the software age. A story about a machine that was built to cure people, but ended up doing something much, much worse. Yeah, this really happened. Back in 1985, a machine that was supposed to save lives actually started to kill. And its story is a pretty stark warning, about the ghosts that can haunt our technology. Okay, so to really get what went so wrong, we first have to understand what this machine was supposed to do. The Therac 25. This thing was billed as a revolution in cancer treatment. So the Therac 25 was this state-of-the-art radiation therapy machine. But here's the part that's absolutely crucial, the part that sets this whole tragedy in motion. See that phrase? Removing older hardware safety mechanisms? The company that built it thought their software was so advanced, so perfect, that they didn't need the old physical fail-safes anymore. Things like actual mechanical locks or fuses that would blow if something went wrong. They decided to put all their trust entirely in the code. And wow, was that a fateful decision. And it didn't take long for that trust to be, completely shattered. For both the operators and the patients, the first sign that something was deeply wrong was just a single cryptic message on a screen. Just malfunction 54. That's it. Imagine you're the operator. You check the user manual, nothing, no explanation. Later on, people would find out it meant the radiation dose was way off, either too high or too low. But in that moment, it was completely meaningless. So what did they do? A lot of the time, they just tried the treatment again. But for the person on the treatment table, the experience was just horrifying. They felt this intense, electric burn. They heard a loud crackling or snapping sound coming from this massive machine. They were getting blasted with a dose of radiation that was hundreds, sometimes thousands of times stronger than it should have been. And the craziest part? The machine's display would tell the operator the exact opposite. It would report that there was a massive underdose or even no dose at all. A complete catastrophe, hidden behind a totally wrong and tragically reassuring message. So what on earth was going on inside the computer? How could this happen? Well, it took investigators a while, but they finally found it. A subtle but incredibly deadly software bug. A glitch that would only show up under a very, very specific set of circumstances. And here it is. It all came down to just 8 seconds. Imagine you're a skilled operator. You've done this 1,000 times. You're typing in the treatment settings really fast. Then, you see a typo. No problem. You hit the up arrow key to go back. You fix it. You hit enter. If you did all of that, the whole sequence, in under 8 seconds, you triggered the bug. The software's safety checks just couldn't keep up with your typing speed, and the machine would fire a raw, high-powered beam of radiation with none of the safety filters in place. In the world of software, this has a name. It's called a race condition. And it's pretty much what it sounds like. You have 2 different parts of the code basically racing against each other. And the whole result depends on which one wins. In the Therac 25's case, it was the operator's fast data entry racing against the software's safety checks. And tragically, the operator's fast fingers won every time. And get this is the part that is just so mind-blowing. The Therac 25 wasn't even the first machine with this bug. Its older brother, the Therac 20, had the exact same flaw in its software. But here's the difference. The Therac 20 had those old-school physical safety locks. So if an operator triggered the bug on the old machine, a physical fuse would just blow. Poof! Treatment halted, everyone was safe. The Therac 25? They took those physical backups away. They made the software the one and only line of defense. And that made it deadly. A deadly software bug is one thing, but what really turned these accidents into a full-blown tragedy was how the people, the company behind the machine, responded. Between 1985 and 1987, there were 6 of these massive overdose incidents. 6 times this machine failed in the most catastrophic way imaginable. So when the hospitals started reporting these horrible incidents, you'd think the manufacturer would jump right on it, right? Nope. Their response was, it was slow and incredibly dismissive. Just look at this quote from an FDA review. They're saying the company's letter to users does not describe the defect, and the tone just isn't urgent enough. They basically treated a lethal flaw like it was a minor inconvenience. At this timeline, it just paints such a frustrating picture. The first accidents happened in '85. The company knows about them. But well into 1986, they're still telling hospitals it's impossible for their machine to deliver an overdose. It literally took the FDA stepping in and officially declaring the machine defective, and, get this, the hospital users forming their own group to share information before the company was finally forced to do a real recall and fix. So, as everyone kept digging, the investigators, the engineers, they all started closing in on the one unavoidable, terrifying truth at the very heart of the Therac 25's design. And this quote from an internal FDA memo, man, it's basically the tombstone for the whole design philosophy. The software alone cannot be relied upon to assure safe operation. The great experiment, the idea that you could trust code to be the only thing keeping people safe, had failed, and it failed with absolutely lethal consequences, a conclusion that came far, far too late for some. So, how did they eventually fix it? Well, take a look. The solution was basically to put everything back the way it was. They added new hardware circuits, they added an independent monitor, they added a physical hardware interlock. 3 of the 4 major fixes were putting hardware back into the machine. They essentially had to reinstall the very safeguards they had so proudly removed in the first place. Look, the story of the Therac 25, it's not just some old tech horror story. It's become a foundational lesson in software safety. And honestly, its lessons are probably more important today than they were back in the 80s. Because you see, the disaster wasn't really about one little coding bug. The real bugs were much bigger. They were systemic. It was about a dangerous overconfidence in software. It was about a design philosophy that got rid of backups and created a single point of failure. And maybe worst of all, it was about a company culture that just wouldn't listen to the people who were actually using the machine and telling them something was terribly, terribly wrong. And that brings us to the biggest lesson of all from this. Safety isn't just about the software. It's about the whole system. You can't just have one line of defense. You need layers. You need physical backups. You have to design things so that when the software does fail, and it always will eventually, the system fails in a safe way. Because if the Therac 25 taught us anything, it's that code by itself is never enough. Think about it. This whole story happened back in the 80s with just a handful of machines. Today, our cars, our medical devices, our entire world runs on billions and billions of lines of code. And the story of Malfunction 54 leaves us with a really heavy question, one we still haven't fully answered. In a world that runs on code, who answers when it's wrong?